Hello. The video you are about to see contains images of dolls only.
If you've told Icky as much about the Rainbow's Queen of the May party as you've told me, I bet he knows everything about it by now. Come on, come over here. We're live. Hurry up and say hello.
Oh, what? You're always sneaking up on me. Come on over here, Icky darling. Sit down here, Icky. Hello, everybody. This is Lacey. I hope you've all had a pretty week. Did you hear the video yesterday? It was a pretty week, wasn't it, Bert?
Oh, it was, yes. Now, what do you want to remember today?
Want to hear the story about Little Belle. Oh, that was a beautiful story. That was. We really liked that, didn't we, Icky?
Oh, I'm really glad you liked that one. Okay, ready for the magic?
Yeah!
Magic voices fill the air. Magic memories take us there.
No. No, not that one either. No, I don't like it.
Oh, there's a nice one, Impy. The pink with the sparkles.
No, the Pinxes will be wearing things like that. I don't want to look like them. Oh, I wish Ever Rose was coming with me.
Oh, yes, I wish she was too, darling, but you know she doesn't go to rainbows. Look, what about this lovely turquoise blue to match your eyes?
Oh. No! We don't want a dress, do we?
Don't want a nice new party dress? But why not, Impy, darling?
Because we're not going, are we, Icky? We're not going to this silly Prettier and May party, are we, Icky?
Not going? But you must. It's going to be so much fun. There's going to be food and dancing and a prize for the best dress. And someone will get to be Queen of the May.
It won't be us, will it, Icky? It'll be one of those really pretty girls like Lynnwyn or Anne Howard Griffiths. And we're not going there to be laughed at or ignored. Are we, Icky?
Oh, dear. Come over here and have a snuggle. This isn't like my Impy Imp.
And we'll feel better soon, won't we, Icky? We'll be all right, won't we, Icky? We'll feel better in a minute. Sorry, I'm being a silly girl. We'll be all right in a minute, won't we, Icky?
Now, what's all this about you not being pretty? Of course you're pretty, Impy. You're beautiful. And never let anyone tell you you're not.
But there's other girls. There's other little dolls much prettier.
Well, maybe. Maybe not. But don't you know that it isn't the best girls who are the prettiest ones? Not all princesses are beautiful like in Disney, you know.
They aren't?
Of course not. I know an amazing princess who didn't think she was beautiful at all, but she was a really awesome one, and in the end, everyone knew it.
You do? Oh, will you tell us about her?
All right, now make sure that Icky doesn't ask a lot of silly questions, because otherwise I won't tell you a word.
Who's that, Icky? You have to be very, very quiet and no interrupting. Is that clear, Icky? Because I know what you can be like. Now, we're ready now, my bird. What's the story told?
It's the story of Little Belle and the Jasmine Gown.
Oh, that sounds like a pretty one. Please go on, my bird.
Well, once upon a time, long, long ago in a land far to the east, there lived a mighty king. He lived in a huge palace. He had lots of riches, money and treasure, lands and castles, people to serve him in any way he wanted. He also had 30 wives, Impy.
30?
Yes, 30. In the East in those days, men used to have lots of wives. This king had 30 wives, and ever so many children. He had fine, strong princes for his sons, and the most beautiful princesses for daughters. But there was one, just one princess, who was a bit different. Nobody liked to talk about her or think about her, and her name was Little Belle.
That's a pretty name.
Yes, it is. Little Belle had been born to the king's youngest and most junior wife, Summer Moon. The king didn't think too much of Summer Moon or her daughter, who had been a delicate child and who had grown up into a quiet, thin, nervous girl who never spoke to anyone. She didn't play or sing well. She couldn't dance, was no good at sewing. In fact, she could do nothing that a real princess ought to be able to do. A lot of the time, Little Belle was left on her own. She made friends with the palace slaves, though this was strictly forbidden, and used to help them with their work. No one noticed or cared.
Oh, poor Little Belle.
Well, one day there was a state visit from the king of a neighbouring land, attended by a large party of nobles, and the king's young son, Hopeful Dawn. Little Belle was there with all the other princes and princesses to welcome them, and as soon as she saw the young prince, she thought how very handsome he was, and how very sad.
Why was he sad?
Well, he was very young, like Little Belle, only 17. He wasn't tall and rugged like her brothers, but slight and gentle. He was that king's only son, and he looked as though he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. But he had a kind, wise face. Little Belle liked him at once. That night there was a state banquet for the visitors. Little Belle was there, at one of the lowest tables, but she caught glimpses of the young prince, and the more she saw of him, the more she liked him. When the long meal was over, the visiting king stood up to make a speech. "My honoured host," he began, "gracious hostesses, fair princes and princesses." That's how royal people talked in those days, Impy. "I have come on this long journey with matters of grave importance on my mind. You may already know that the fierce king who dwells in the land that borders on both of ours to the south is growing in strength. He looks across his borders with greedy eyes. He sees both your majesty's land and mine, rich, fruitful, and fertile compared to his desert plains, and he hungers to take possession of them. Now I mean no offence to your majesty, but alone you cannot defeat him. Alone I cannot either. I freely own as much. But together we may make a stand to keep our lands free. Therefore, it is in my mind to forge an alliance between us by joining our two great royal families into one. To be plain, I will give my only son, the fair and radiant Prince Hopeful Dawn, to wed with one of your daughters, if it please you."
We don't like fighting, do we, Iki? But if a prince marrying a princess might stop the fighting, we suppose it's all right. But it's a bit strange, isn't it, Iki?
You're right, Impy. Not very nice just to be told, "Hey, marry that prince." Anyway, the king had thought of that. He rose to reply. "You speak well, honoured guest," he said, "and I have given thought to this matter. Your plan pleases me, but I foresee a problem. Here you see many princesses, each more beautiful than the last. By the right, your son should marry my firstborn daughter, Fragrant Orchid. But see, she is full 5 years his senior, and would that make for a happy marriage?"
I think the prince should choose.
"You're right, Impy, and the visiting king thought so too." "You speak wisely," he said. "My son shall marry his own choice. Moreover, I would wish his wife to be skilled in all that befits a princess, one that shall become queen of our great realm. And so let it be thus. Every royal maiden that wishes to marry my son shall make herself a gown with her own hands, the most beautiful gown that she can devise. On the 7th night from this, the princesses shall walk down that royal stair, each wearing the gown that her hands have made. Then shall my son see in the wisdom of his heart which princess he shall choose. And I charge you, maidens, let no slave put one stitch into your garment. It must all be your own work, as you are princesses of the blood royal and ladies of honour."
Oh, this, but Little Belle is any good at sewing. She won't be able to do it.
"Ah, we'll have to see, won't we?" Well, that night Little Belle went back to her room. Her slave girl and friend, White Swan, helped her into her nightgown, brushed out her long black hair, and brought in a bowl of fresh, delicate white jasmine petals to scent the air while Little Belle slept.
I know, Jasmine. Mummy sometimes has it on the melty things to make the room smell nice. It's lovely.
Yes, it's lovely, and it made Little Belle's room smell like a beautiful summer garden. Well, all the candles had been blown out, and Little Belle was just falling asleep when she thought she heard a voice calling her. She sat up and listened, and there it was again. "Little Belle!" It seemed to be calling from outside the window. Little Belle got up, relit one of the candles, went across to the window, pulled back the thin silk screen, and in hopped a tiny brown bird and perched on her finger. It was a nightingale.
Oh, I love nightingales.
Oh, yes, so do I. Little Belle smiled at the nightingale. "Greetings, little brother," she said. "Why are you here?" "To find out why you are so sad," said the nightingale. "That is easily answered," said Little Belle. "I am sad because I cannot marry the Prince Hopeful Dawn, and I would truly love to see him happy."
Oh, she's so lovely.
"Yes, she is." "You love to see all things happy, do you not?" said the nightingale, putting its little head on one side. "Do you remember when you reared me from a hatchling and helped teach me to fly?" "I do indeed," said Little Belle. "Do you remember the mice you have set free from the traps and put back into the wild? The carp you sent back in the river? The hungry you have fed with food saved from your own platter? The sick people you have tended with your own hands? The many times you have done the work of a slave who was dropping asleep from weariness?" "That is all nothing. Anybody would have done the same," said Little Belle. "I cannot do what a princess should do. I cannot play, sing, or dance, talk to important people, and I cannot sew a gown with my own hands as I am bidden to do. I will never be able to marry the dear prince and help him be happy again."
Oh.
The nightingale thought for a moment. He looked around the room with his bright, beady little eyes. Then he hopped off Little Belle's finger and fluttered into the air. "You shall sew a gown, and all with your own hands," he chirped. "I will show you what to do, and I will help you as I can, but every stitch of the gown will be of your own work, as it was decreed." Little Belle jumped for joy. "Tell me what I must do," she said. "We must hurry. We only have 7 days and 6 nights. On the 7th night from this, I must wear the gown."
Ooh, no time to lose, no time to lose. Is there Icky?
"First, run into the garden and pick more jasmine petals," said the nightingale. "As many as you can carry. While you are doing that, I will ask the spider for some thread. It needs to be passing fine thread to sew together the petals of the jasmine flower. But do not worry, the thread is fine but very strong. I will call my brother to bring us a needle from the pine tree. Now hurry."
Goodness gracious, how's she gonna wear that?
"Well, you'll soon see, won't you?" Little Belle ran to where the jasmine bloomed thickly in the garden and filled the skirt of her robe with petals. Then she ran back to find a pine needle broken in half and already fitted with a tiny eye and threaded with thread so fine she could hardly see it. Instead of being happy, she burst into tears. "I cannot sew with ordinary needles and thread," she wept. "How am I going to sew the petals with this tiny needle?"
Oh, I know what that's like, Little Belle. I'm not good at sewing either.
"Dry your tears," said the nightingale. "Pick up your work. I will sing to you until the dawn, and you shall see how my magic song will make your fingers fly. Now hurry, we do not have much time." Little Belle picked up the needle and 2 jasmine petals. The nightingale began to sing his sweet, sweet song, and Little Belle began to stitch as though her life depended on it. All night she sewed, and in the grey dawn, with the first beams of the sun, the nightingale fell silent. There was a beautiful swathe of white jasmine petal cloth.
How beautiful.
"Guard it well," said the nightingale. "Sleep now, then collect more petals as soon as it grows cool. I will be back as soon as the sun has set."
Oh, wow.
For the next 6 nights, Little Belle slept through the heat of the day. She saw no one, ate very little, collected jasmine in the cool of the evening, and all night she sewed to the nightingale's magic song. The magic in the bird's music kept the jasmine cloth sweet and fresh. The petals did not wilt or die. Little Belle felt as if she were living in a dream, but love and hope spurred her on, and her fingers flew to the sweet notes of the nightingale.
Oh, I just know she's gonna win.
Ah, now we're about to find out, Impy darling. On the night of the competition, all the princesses decked themselves in the gowns they had made. They all gathered at the head of the royal stair. "I declare, sister," said the Princess Blooming Orchid to her sister Fragrant Orchid, "your gown is delightful. It quite outshines my own." Fragrant Orchid was clad in cloth of gold and royal purple silk. Blooming Orchid wore emerald green satin with silver bells at the hem and emeralds in her hair.
Ooh, wow!
"Thank you, sister," said Fragrant Orchid. "A mere trifle. Has anyone seen anything of that provoking sister of ours, Little Belle? Of course I'm not worried, for she is no needlewoman, but my slaves say a candle burns late in her room every night." "Think not of it, sister," said Radiant Orchid, who was all in pink and sparkling with sequins. "If she has fashioned anything, it will be a slave's apron and kirtle. She helps the slaves, if all I hear is correct." The three sisters laughed disdainfully.
Oh, they're so nasty.
"Oh, they are, Impy." Just then a golden harp began to play. The doors to the great hall opened, and a footman announced the royal princesses. The band of beautifully gowned, elaborate-haired, jewel-bedecked princesses began to descend the royal staircase. They each walked past the prince so that he could see and admire them, curtsying to him as they went by. Then each took her place at the long royal table. What no one had noticed was that Little Belle had been waiting in the shadows, and she began her descent of the royal stair a long way behind the others. Prince Hopeful Dawn watched the bevy of tall, haughty royal ladies strutting past, rustling with silk, their overdone hair piled in loops and waves, their many jewels glittering, and his heart was very heavy. What was he to do? Each one was beautiful, graceful, obviously skilled in all which a princess should know. Yet their faces were cold, inscrutable. Not one of them stirred his heart. He was about to turn away, back to the royal table, when he saw the last princess descending.
Oh, yay! Oh, icky, darling! It's Little Belle, isn't it, icky?
It is. Everyone else had seen her too by this time. The hum of talk in the hall stopped, and everyone gasped at the sight of the slender, delicate little figure as it almost seemed to float down the stairs towards the entranced young prince. Little Belle's long, shining hair was simply fastened back from her face with a silver comb, and adorned with fresh flowers. She wore no jewels. Her pure white gown was a soft floating drift of sweetly scented jasmine petals, ornamented with dewdrops which had been magicked so that they did not fall. They glittered in the light of the candles like diamonds. Her gentle face wore a soft smile, and her big dark eyes met the prince's and stayed on him, shining with hope. "You are she," said the prince. He stepped forward and took the hand of Little Belle.
Oh, how lovely!
Well, it was, but Little Belle's father was not very happy about it, and all his other daughters were simply furious. There was an immediate outcry. "She didn't make that gown! How dare she! She can't even sew! Father, it isn't fair!" Finally, the king banged on the table for silence. "My fair prince," he said, "that you may know, your chosen bride is named Little Belle. Her mother is Summer Moon, the least of my queens. She has lived in my palace almost as one of my horses or dogs has lived. No one marks her. She is nothing. She has no princessly skills, for no one has taught them to her." "It is shame on you to own it, sir," said the prince gravely. The king went red with anger, but the prince raised his hand for silence and went on. "Princessly skills she may not have, yet I venture she knows skills your other daughters know not. Did I not hear of a maiden who helps the helpless, defends the weak, does the work of the most unworthy slave so that he may not feel the whip? I have been seeking to find her, but no one would tell me who she is." The king closed his mouth and dropped his eyes, while the other princesses just fumed and shifted uncomfortably.
I bet they did, the mean things.
After staring at the king very hard, Prince Hopeful Dawn turned to Little Belle with a smile. "Fair maiden," he said, "did you indeed put every stitch into this gown with your own hands according to the rules of the competition?" "Fair prince, I did," said Little Bell. "A nightingale which I raised from a hatchling showed me the way, and gave me his magic to help me complete the work. But I gathered every petal, and every stitch is my own, as I am a princess of the blood royal and a lady of honour." "Then you shall be my wife," said the prince, "and one day my queen, and not because of your jasmine gown, beautiful though it is, but because of your beautiful heart." And he kissed her cheek and led her to sit beside him at the head of the table.
Isn't that the most amazing thing ever? Isn't it good? And were they married and live happily ever after?
Yes, Impy darling, they were soon married, and Little Bell was a wonderful queen of that land when the old king died, as Hopeful Dawn was a strong and wise new king. They ruled the people with love and wisdom, freed the slaves and paid them fair wages for their work, made good laws and kept the peace for many years. The queen was always gentle and kind to everyone, from the highest noble to the lowest peasant, and they used to call her Queen Whiteheart, because they said she had a heart as pure and as white as her beautiful jasmine gown.
Oh, Bert, that was a fantastic story. You had the wickedest stories ever.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it, Impy.
I loved it, and so did didn't you, And he was very good today, didn't ask any silly questions.
He was exceptionally good. And we're going on holiday soon, so maybe I'll tell you a story or two on holiday as well.
Oh, there. Now, come on, Bert. Come on. We got Pinxes too. Come on, Icky. We got Pinxes too.
Oh, what's happening?
Help me, Icky.
Oh, Impy, I'm tired. We need to have a rest now.
No. You can't have a rest because we got to find my new party dress for the Queen of the May party at Rainbows. And my Bert, I just had a fantastic idea. I know what colour it's going to be now.
You do? What colour is it going to be?
It's going to be a white one like the Jasmine Gown.
Brilliant idea. Well done, Impy.
Yes, someone sit down with your Peter. I want you to sit right down and then we'll
Okay,
find
what do I
my
do?
party
Let's
dress.
sit down here and I'll help you on the computer. We're going back to that website, are we?